Officer Blake rolled his patrol car to a sudden stop on Maple Street, his heart pounding with the thrill he always felt when the red and blue lights painted the busy morning traffic like flashing crayons while onlookers nearby held their breath and phones up high. In the crosswalk ahead, a tall black man in a neat navy suit stepped back onto the curb, lifting calm hands while balancing a paper coffee cup that steamed the cool air beneath onlookers who froze, gripping phones like shields. Blake's voice crackled over the loudspeaker, telling the man to stay still, and curious commuters slowed their cars, phones ready as if they sensed the show was about to start as bystanders pressed record, breaths caught in quiet shock. The man placed his coffee on a newspaper box, stroked a silver badge on his lapel as though for luck, and waited with patient eyes that met Blake's stare without fear amid commuters staring wide-eyed, silent with raised phones. March wind tugged at the officer's hat, rustling street banners that welcomed visitors to the city's spring market. Yet Blake felt only the heat of anger he never dared admit at home while taxi riders leaned out windows, cameras shaking. He told himself he was checking a suspicious person, but deep inside a small cruel whisper said he liked proving power whenever someone dark-skinned drove a better car than his own under curious shoppers pausing, thumbs hovering over record. Blake swung out of the cruiser, hand resting on his holster, the concrete seeming to echo each step like a drum warning everyone that trouble was coming with skateboard kids stopping nearby, phones glowing ready. Passing pigeons fluttered onto a bakery roof, scattering crumbs that floated down like slow snowflakes, and children on a school bus pressed faces to the window to see what was wrong beside street vendors who hushed their chatter, phones raised. The suited man, whose name tag read T. Johnson, spoke softly, explaining he was late for a meeting and would like to know the reason for the stop. Yet Blake ignored the polite tone as bus passengers crowded the glass, screens blinking red dots. Cars honked as the light turned green again, but no one moved, creating a frozen scene where even the city clock seemed to pause between ticks while delivery riders slowed down, helmets reflecting flashing lights. Blake demanded identification, voice sharp as broken glass, and Johnson calmly reached for a leather wallet so carefully that his movements looked like a slow-motion lesson on safety among office workers lined on the curb, fingers poised on screens. A cyclist rang his bell in warning as he swerved around the stalled traffic, and the ding carried down the street like a tiny alarm nobody could silence beneath college students gasping, phones angled for the best view. Johnson handed over his driver's license and an extra card, both edges crisp and clean, the neat letters showing more care than Blake showed his own badge among tourists clutching souvenirs and recording every moment. Blake glanced at the ID but skipped the other card, assuming it was some fancy club pass, because in his mind important titles never belonged to men who looked like Johnson under the gaze of a traffic cop statue, real phones silently rolling. Radios inside nearby taxis buzzed about weather and baseball, but the biggest story was forming here, unseen by the talk show hosts chewing on their stale jokes. Blake began a speech he had practiced about taillights and possible warrants, ignoring the fact he hadn't even checked the car yet and was fishing for excuses like a boy with no bait. Johnson listened, brows slightly raised, as if watching a magician reveal a trick he had already solved, and he nodded to keep things peaceful. A patrol trainee across the street scribbled notes on a clipboard, learning more from Blake's attitude than from any academy rulebook about community trust. Blake felt the eyes of the crowd and puffed his chest, certain that showing toughness proved bravery, though deep in his gut he sensed a shaky feeling he called hunger but was really doubt. An elderly woman pulling a tiny dog whispered to Johnson to stay strong, her voice trembling like dry leaves yet full of quiet support. Johnson thanked her, his words gentle as warm tea, and the kindness seemed to clash with the hard metal glare of the cruiser's spotlight still shining on him. Blake ordered a trunk search and Johnson agreed, unlocking the sedan with a soft beep that echoed down the block like a toy robot greeting the day. Inside the trunk lay only a leather briefcase, a folded raincoat, and a stack of neatly bound reports labeled confidential, all smelling faintly of lemon cleaner. Blake pawed through the items, finding nothing illegal, but chose to lecture about potential hidden compartments, spinning tales taller than the surrounding office towers. Johnson remained silent, letting the officer's words hang heavy like fog that would soon burn off under truth's sunlight. Nearby, a news van rolled up, antenna rising, camera operator jumping out as if drawn by a magnet of conflict, and the reporter fixed her mic hoping for dramatic footage. Blake noticed the lens and felt a thrill mixed with fear, because fame could be praise or punishment, a coin spinning above his head he could not snatch. Johnson quietly asked if the stop was over, but Blake, not ready to lose control, demanded to see the extra card now, his hand trembling though he called it cold fingers. The card bore the state seal of Internal Affairs, gold letters announcing Director Theodore Johnson, and suddenly the sidewalk seemed to tilt under Blake's boots. Gasps rippled through the bystanders like pebbles dropped in a pond, each widening ring of shock reflecting how quickly power can flip. Blake's mouth went dry as sand, words sticking, and the rookie across the street lowered his pen, realizing this would be tomorrow's Academy cautionary tale. Johnson spoke clearly so all could hear, explaining he was on his way to audit the precinct and invited Officer Blake to accompany him for a frank conversation. Camera shutters clicked like popcorn, preserving Blake's blush that no badge could cover, while overhead the traffic light kept changing colors as though impatient with human mistakes. Blake muttered an apology, the word foreign on his tongue, and the crowd sensed the shift, murmuring like distant thunder after lightning has already struck. Johnson retrieved his items, moving with dignity unbent by the ordeal, showing every child watching what quiet strength looks like. The coffee on the newspaper box had cooled, a thin wisp of steam still rising, and Blake saw how even unattended warmth stays gentle longer than forced anger. Birds returned to peck at fallen crumbs, the simple rhythm of city life resuming, but Blake felt stuck between past habits and a different road he feared to walk. Traffic finally flowed, engines humming like a released sigh, yet whispers of the stop traveled with each car as passengers shared the story on hurried calls. Johnson shook Blake's hand, firm yet forgiving, saying he valued honesty above pride and hoped they could speak later about fair policing. Officer Blake watched the sedan pull away, its taillights bright as tiny red promises, and he wondered if today's hard lesson might become the first page of his own better chapter. Officer Blake walked beside Director Johnson toward the waiting sedan, every step heavier than the badge on his chest, while spring wind tugged at his sleeves and made the patrol lights flicker like anxious fireflies, a moment he knew would replay in his sleep tonight. The crowd drifted away, but a few faces at shop windows whispered about fairness and how quick a stop became a headline, their reflections mixing with morning sale posters in bright, unsettling colors, etching regret like chalk lines on his memory wall. Inside the sedan, Johnson calmly asked Blake to recite proper stop rules, turning the back seat into a quiet classroom where mistakes echoed louder than any siren, proof that calm questions shine brighter than lights. Blake repeated policy, yet his words wobbled because what he had done outside lived far from the printed guidebook, like muddy boots on a spotless floor, a reminder that rules without respect break easily. Johnson took notes. The faint pencil scratch sounded like thunder in Blake's guilty mind, each stroke carving a lesson deeper than a carved desk name, stacking lessons higher than any downtown billboard. Streets rolled past in a blur of signs and buses, but Blake saw only the red glow of shame on every reflective surface, as if the city itself held up a mirror, each mark sounding louder than the cruiser's engine. At a crosswalk, fourth graders on a trip waved. Johnson smiled back, his kindness bright as morning sun, and Blake felt the silent weight of their excited trust, turning guilt into a weight he could finally feel. The kids admired Blake's uniform, unaware of his mistake, and that praise sat on him like wet sand filling boots during a long march, quiet proof the uniform alone never earns trust. Johnson said young eyes copy what they see, so officers must model the pages they want read aloud in future years, because example beats lecture every single day, like ink spreading across pages of tomorrow's news. The words hit Blake hard, making rings of thought like stones dropped in deep water, spreading farther than he could quickly measure, echoes he feared his kids might one day overhear. Arriving at the precinct, Johnson let Blake enter first, reminding him that rank never cancels simple courtesy, especially when watched by those learning the ropes, painting humility across halls once filled with pride. Hall lights buzzed. Officers glanced up, surprised to see internal affairs walking beside their uneasy teammate, curiosity crackling like static in the air, sliding into his thoughts like cold rain in fall. The sergeant half raised a salute. Johnson's friendly nod eased the hall like a coach, saying everyone still has a chance, even in overtime, lighting a path he hoped recruits would also walk. In the briefing room, Johnson called recruits forward, stating learning must be shared so growth reaches every corner the way sunrise touches rooftops one by one, sealing honesty into the cracks of his resolve. Blake retold the stop step by step, even confessing the rush of power he had felt, his voice shaking but clear, like a radio signal trying to cut through static, rolling away excuses he once kept in his pocket. The recruits listened, learning that courage can look like honest confession, not raised voices, writing notes with pens scratching like tiny truth chisels, wrapping resolve around him like a new duty belt. Johnson praised the truth, saying seeds grow best in turn soil and mistakes can feed better habits, much like compost changes scraps into rich earth, carving courage deeper than any badge engraving. He showed complaint charts on the screen, Colored bars proving bias can be measured and reduced because numbers shine harsh light on hidden corners, turning the briefing room into a living promise. Blake spotted his badge number on minor complaints and felt a chill because numbers speak without apology or excuses, words he felt brushing dust from his tired beliefs. Johnson outlined Mirror Mondays. Officers would role-play both driver and cop to grow empathy through practice, filling gaps no lecture could bridge, teaching that silence grows if no one trims it back. Some officers looked nervous, others hopeful. Blake felt relief at clear steps that formed a sturdy ladder upward, rung by practical rung, blooming hope where suspicion had sprouted weeds. A rookie asked how to protest a partner's bias. Johnson demonstrated calm words like a whistle to restart the play, showing firmness without fury, anchoring the oath firmly behind his silver shield. Blake remembered times he stayed silent, realizing quiet can be as loud as the wrong it hides, echoing in the ears of those hurt, warming even the stern faces of senior officers. Johnson passed out a short oath of equal respect, telling them to keep it behind each badge as a pocket mirror, so it touched the heart whenever the badge tapped the chest, stirring notebooks like wind through quiet trees. Blake traced the words, promising to read them each dawn until they guided his reflexes, turning respect into muscle memory, inviting reflection on corners still left in shade. Community leaders entered, including the elderly woman with a tiny dog. Her smile warmed the room the way fresh cookies sent a kitchen, lifting the roof of habit so new air could enter. She said apologies without action are empty cups. Officers nodded at the simple wisdom. Understanding talk needs legs to walk. Digging honesty trenches rumors could not flood. A teacher added that today's stop would appear in student journals and beg the next chapter to show progress, not another loop of the same mistake, ringing clearer than the station's noon bell chime. Blake pledged to lead Mirror Mondays, volunteer with youth, and invite critics on ride-alongs, opening doors once kept shut, sending a tremor through routine set in concrete. Applause rose, soft but sincere, echoing like cleansing rain on old roofs, washing away settled dust of doubt, waking empathy that had dozed behind old slogans. Johnson placed Blake in charge of the first session, saying duty cements lessons better than talk, the way wet cement hardens into a solid walkway, marking the day as a hinge swinging toward change. Blake accepted, knowing growth often travels bumpy roads, not smooth pavement, but good tires are built for rough ground, brightening the room more than flickering bulbs. Recruits helped draft a schedule on the board until it looked like a bright map toward fairness, arrows pointing at every shift change, guiding questions that had waited in closed fists. Johnson said maps guide but steps matter, then gave Blake his card for future questions, promising open lines of advice, stretching his mind like road lines into distance. Noon sunlight colored the street outside. Blake pictured each car carrying a story about respect, hoping every driver might someday feel true safety during a stop, leaving footsteps future rookies might safely trace. He thanked Johnson, the handshake feeling like a teammate's tap before a big play, full of shared purpose, nudging tradition off paths worn too smooth by time. Johnson advised Blake to tell his family first, because truth grows strongest at home, watered by honesty before rumor, filling unseen gaps like mortar between loose bricks. Passing a hallway mirror, Blake saw badge and face together and chose to keep them equally clear, cleaning one meaning cleaning both, collecting in his chest like rising spring water. Outside he breathed cool air as distant sirens now sounded like promises, not warnings, humming high. Early on Monday, Officer Blake unlocked the precinct classroom before sunrise, determined the first Mirror Monday drill would prove lessons stick when they moved from talk to action everyone could see. The crowd had gone, but faces at shop windows still whispered about fairness, reflections mixing with sale posters in bright, unsettling colors. Inside the sedan, Johnson asked Blake to recite proper stop rules, turning the back seat into a quiet classroom where mistakes echoed louder than sirens. Blake repeated policy, yet his words wobbled because what he had done lived far from the guidebook, like muddy boots on a spotless floor. Johnson took notes. The faint pencil scratch sounded like thunder in Blake's mind, each stroke carving a lesson deeper than a carved desk name. Streets rolled past in a blur, but Blake saw only the red glow of shame in every reflection, as if the city itself held up a mirror. At a crosswalk, fourth graders waved. Johnson smiled back, and Blake felt the silent weight of their excited trust. The kids admired Blake's uniform, unaware of his mistake, and that praise sat on him like wet sand filling boots during a long march, quiet proof the uniform alone never earns trust. Johnson said young eyes copy what they see, so officers must model the pages they want read aloud in future years, because example beats lecture every single day. like ink spreading across pages of tomorrow's news. The words hit Blake hard, making rings of thought like stones dropped in deep water, spreading farther than he could quickly measure, echoes he feared his kids might one day overhear. Arriving at the precinct, Johnson let Blake enter first, reminding him that rank never cancels simple courtesy, especially when watched by those learning the ropes, painting humility across halls once filled with pride. Hall lights buzzed. Officers glanced up, surprised to see internal affairs walking beside their uneasy teammate, curiosity crackling like static in the air, sliding into his thoughts like cold rain in fall. The sergeant half raised a salute. Johnson's friendly nod eased the hall like a coach, saying everyone still has a chance, even in overtime, lighting a path he hoped recruits would also walk. In the briefing room, Johnson called recruits forward, stating learning must be shared so growth reaches every corner the way sunrise touches rooftops one by one, sealing honesty into the cracks of his resolve. Blake retold the stop step by step, even confessing the rush of power he had felt, his voice shaking but clear, like a radio signal trying to cut through static, rolling away excuses he once kept in his pocket. The recruits listened, learning that courage can look like honest confession, not raised voices, writing notes with pens scratching like tiny truth chisels, wrapping resolve around him like a new duty belt. Johnson praised the truth, saying seeds grow best in turn soil and mistakes can feed better habits, much like compost changes scraps into rich earth, carving courage deeper than any badge engraving. He showed complaint charts on the screen, colored bars proving bias can be measured and reduced, because numbers shine harsh light on hidden corners, turning the briefing room into a living promise. Blake spotted his badge number on minor complaints and felt a chill, because numbers speak without apology or excuses, words he felt brushing dust from his tired beliefs. Johnson outlined Mirror Mondays. Officers would role-play both driver and cop to grow empathy through practice, filling gaps no lecture could bridge, teaching that silence grows if no one trims it back. Some officers looked nervous, others hopeful. Blake felt relief at clear steps that formed a sturdy ladder upward, rung by practical rung, blooming hope where suspicion had sprouted weeds. A rookie asked how to protest a partner's bias. Johnson demonstrated calm words like a whistle to restart the play, showing firmness without fury, anchoring the oath firmly behind his silver shield. Blake remembered times he stayed silent, realizing quiet can be as loud as the wrong it hides, echoing in the ears of those hurt, warming even the stern faces of senior officers. Johnson passed out a short oath of equal respect, telling them to keep it behind each badge as a pocket mirror, so it touched the heart whenever the badge tapped the chest, stirring notebooks like wind through quiet trees. Blake traced the words, promising to read them each dawn until they guided his reflexes, turning respect into muscle memory, inviting reflection on corners still left in shade. Community partners arrived next, including the teacher whose students wrote journal entries, and she brought colorful posters showing the kids' hopes, safe walks home, and police who waved with friendly hands, lifting the roof of habit so new air could enter. The cadets circled the posters, stunned by the simple wishes, realizing heroes are measured less by daring chases and more by everyday smiles that keep fear out of ordinary afternoons, digging honesty trenches rumors could not flood. A small tech cart rolled in bearing tablets loaded with a new training game where each choice led to branching outcomes. Blake challenged the class to earn the highest trust score instead of the fastest ticket, ringing clearer than the station's noon bell chime. Laughter mixed with focus as players learned listening early avoids problems later, just like tightening a noose will prevent a crash miles down the road, sending a tremor through routine set in concrete. While scores tallied, Blake stepped outside for water and found Officer Reyes studying the complaint chart. Reyes confessed he feared seeing his badge number 2, waking empathy that had dozed behind old slogans. Blake shared how shock became a starting line, not a finish, reminding Reyes that data are streetlights steering them onto safer routes before darkness hides wrong turns, marking the day as a hinge swinging toward change. Back inside, Johnson announced a surprise visitor. Theodore Johnson, the man from Maple Street, in civilian clothes, calm and ready to help, brightening the room more than flickering bulbs. He role-played a driver while a rookie approached, voice steady, remembering every kindness note on the walls, guiding questions that had waited in closed fists. The drill went smoothly until the rookie stalled on wording a warning. Blake whispered a cue, and the rookie thanked Johnson before finishing, earning a nod from the seasoned auditor, stretching his mind like road lines into distance. Johnson praised the rookie, then asked Blake what felt different now. Blake said respect had become muscle, not armor, flexible and part of every move, leaving footsteps future rookies might safely trace. Applause rose again, gentle yet strong, shaking ceiling vents, proving small wins stack into sturdy roofs over community trust, nudging tradition off paths worn too smooth by time. Lunch trays clattered while officers and civilians shared tables, showing barriers shrink when stories swap places over sandwiches, filling unseen gaps like mortar between loose bricks. A teacher said ride-alongs could be rolling lessons. Reyes promised a route past youth murals, linking art, safety, and pride, collecting in his chest like rising spring water. Cleanup began, but Blake left one chart reading kindness as a force multiplier near the exit, so every badge carried that thought into the street, humming under his breath. Afternoon traffic flowed steady on River Avenue when Officer Blake and his seasoned partner Officer Stone received a radio call about a dented fender bender near the grocery store entrance just beyond the park fountain. Blake drove, breathing slow, while Stone grumbled that endless paperwork would ruin their shift, flicking the dashboard with a pen like a drummer tapping nerves into plastic buttons. At the scene, two cars rested safely on the shoulder, one driven by a middle-aged black science teacher named Mr. Carter, the other by a young white delivery driver who kept checking his cracked phone screen. No one was hurt, but horns barked behind him, so Blake waved traffic around, using open palms the way instructors had drilled that morning, pouring calm into a noisy street like cool water into hot oil. Stone strode to the delivery driver first, firing rapid questions, while Blake approached Mr. Carter with the respect script from Mirror Monday, beginning with a gentle greeting and his own name. Mr. Carter, wearing a neat sweater vest patterned with tiny rockets, explained the delivery driver had merged without signaling, scraping his bumper and startling the student's cardboard volcano riding in the back seat. Blake nodded, taking notes plainly visible on a clipboard so nobody wondered what was being written, then repeated the story back to check accuracy exactly as empathy training advised. Stone's voice rose sharp across the hoods, suggesting loud music caused distraction, but the driver denied it, cheeks flushing, eyes darting like startled sparrows. Sensing tension puff like storm clouds, Blake invited both drivers onto the sidewalk away from blistering engines, reminding them distance cools tempers the way shade cools pavement. As they moved, Blake heard Stone mutter, "People always in a hurry," so he flashed a subtle hand signal learned in training that meant pause and breathe. Stone rolled his eyes yet obeyed, and Blake later thanked him because praise cements new habits better than scolding scrapes them. On the curb, Blake asked whether anyone needed medical help. Both said no, though Mr. Carter worried about the volcano model, so Blake offered to inspect it together. Inside the sedan, the volcano stood tall, but the cardboard base had cracked. Blake suggested class tape could repair it, and Mr. Carter smiled, noting tomorrow's science talk would now include lessons on fixing mistakes. Back outside, Blake explained next steps: licenses, insurance, brief statements, photos, keeping his tone level like a ruler on lined paper so information felt orderly, not overwhelming. He handed Mr. Carter a respect oath card, saying officers carry them as promises, not trophies, and welcomed feedback anytime. Mr. Carter's eyebrows lifted in pleasant surprise. The delivery driver asked to see the card too, and Blake shared it, noticing how a small rectangle of words built a tiny bridge neither man expected to cross today. Stone pulled Blake aside, whispering that sharing cards looked weak, but Blake replied that transparency grows trust. Stone shrugged, letting the new thought settle in his pocket like a loose coin. A second squad car arrived carrying two rookies. Blake briefed them in front of the drivers so everyone heard the same facts, modeling open communication like a live tutorial. Radios crackled about another minor crash across town. Stone wanted to hurry, yet Blake insisted thorough trumps quick when fairness is at stake, quoting Director Johnson's mantra. Mr. Carter offered photos he had already snapped on his phone, and Blake thanked him by name, downloading copies to the report tablet so evidence felt shared, not seized. The delivery driver admitted his phone was cracked from rushing between stops. Blake reminded him safe driving protects both packages and people, using calm tone instead of blame. A passing teenager filmed the scene for social media, and Blake waved, understanding cameras live everywhere, so respect must live everywhere too. Stone straightened, remembering that every sidewalk can become a classroom when lenses appear and silence can lecture louder than words. Paperwork done, Blake explained citation options to the driver and repair validation options to Mr. Carter, making sure both felt informed, not ambushed. Mr. Carter asked if the volcano could ride in the police trunk to school for safety. Blake agreed, nestling it beside emergency cones and promising a short escort once reports were filed. Stone raised an eyebrow but stayed quiet, watching Blake secure the fragile project as though it were evidence of patience. While printing the accident slip, Blake noticed Stone staring at the oath card still in his hand, so he offered a spare copy without a word. Stone took it, fingers lingering on the bold first line. Treat every person with equal worth, reading it twice before folding it into his notebook. Traffic eased, afternoon sun dropping behind grocery awnings, and sparrows chirped from power lines like tiny bells announcing class dismissal. The teen's photo soon shared online under #BetterStops. Blake escorted Mr. Carter and the volcano to the squad car. Asking about tomorrow's lesson, Mr. Carter said students would erupt baking soda foam and discuss how pressure finds release, metaphor included. The delivery driver signed his statement, thanking Blake for patience. Blake replied patience travels faster than anger because it prevents return trips. Stone returned licenses with a short apology for earlier tone, surprising even himself, and Blake nodded approval, catching rookies exchange hopeful grins. Mr. Carter requested a group photo to show his class positive policing. Stone hesitated, then agreed, and the filming team became photographer, counting down theatrically. In the snapshot, Stone's smile looked shy yet genuine, Blake's relaxed, and the cardboard volcano perched proudly between them like a small mountain of second chances. After farewells, Blake drove the short escort to Carter's school with lights off, the steady pace feeling like keeping a promise rather than flexing power. At the gate, children waved through classroom windows at their teacher, the volcano, and the squad car, and Blake felt warmth bloom brighter than the dashboard glow. Stone whispered the wave felt good. Blake answered that respect multiplies like that, turning single gestures into ripples reaching distant desks and supper table stories. Back in the cruiser, Stone admitted training might help veterans too. Blake invited him to next Monday's session, and Stone said he would think about it, a soft yes forming. Dispatch radioed thanks for timely, tidy paperwork, and Blake realized clear documentation flows smoother when bias no longer drags ink into messy puddles. As sunset painted the sky orange, Blake parked under soft streetlights, reflecting that today's fair stop rewrote yesterday's mistake in real time, one respectful choice at a time. The following Friday morning, Officer Blake arrived early again, but this time Officer Stone stood beside the classroom door holding 2 coffees, proof that change sometimes shows up wearing small cardboard sleeves. Stone handed Blake a cup and admitted he had reread the respect oath on the bus, finding new meaning in the quiet lines while city billboards still flashed louder messages no one really believed. Inside, recruits rearranged chairs into circles for discussion, and Stone volunteered to lead the opening talk, clearing his throat like a singer testing a new note in front of a careful crowd. He spoke about the fender bender, sharing how a single hand signal and calm tone shifted his view quicker than any lecture, making rookies lean forward like gym fans waiting for a clutch play. Director Johnson listened from the back, nodding once, a small gesture that felt to Stone like a stadium wave, giving courage to finish without old sarcasm for armor. Afterward, Johnson announced a pilot program pairing veterans with rookies on ride-alongs through mixed neighborhoods, and Stone clapped first, louder than anyone. Blake and Stone drew the first assignment for Maple District, where narrow streets, bright murals, and tight-knit families offered chances to use clear voices and open eyes. That afternoon, the officers rolled into Maple in a patrol SUV and marked community team, its fresh decal catching sunlight like a promise painted on steel. Children played curb soccer with a taped foam ball, and grandmothers waved from porches when Blake slowed to 5 miles an hour instead of the usual roaring 10. Stone greeted kids by reading shirt names. One boy yelled the squad car looked cool now that it smiled instead of scowled, making Blake grin behind the wheel. Their first call came fast. A shop owner said a teen pocketed snacks. Blake parked, reminding Stone that fairness stays firm even when the subject is small and scared. Inside, a thin boy in a worn hoodie faced the counter, head low. Stone crouched to eye level and asked his name before touching a radio, a move gentle instead of forceful. The boy, Jordan, whispered he was hungry and would pay later. Blake used training words, saying problems can be solved without cuffs, and offered to call a guardian. Mrs. Patel, the owner, frowned but listened, surprised when Stone offered to buy the snacks if Jordan helped stock shelves for an hour as payback. Jordan agreed, and Mrs. Patel softened, seeing a helper beats an empty report. She handed Stone a receipt while Blake phoned Jordan's sister for permission. During the hour, Stone taught Jordan to face cereal boxes forward, saying small tasks deserve respect, while Blake helped Mrs. Patel set up an emergency text app. When Jordan's sister arrived, shelves looked neat. She hugged her brother, thanking the officers for patience. Mrs. Patel snapped a photo for her community board. Outside, a neighbor asked if the department could join tomorrow's mural touch-up. Blake promised rookies would bring brushes, not batons. Stone added he would bring donuts and music, earning cheers and learning smiles cost less than citations yet by more peace. As sun lowered, Dispatch sent a noise complaint. Blake and Stone reached a block party celebrating a student's math scholarship. Speakers rattled windows, but joy ruled. Stone asked the DJ to drop bass slightly and dedicate the next song to the scholar, turning reprimand into applause. Parents thanked the officers, joking a math award finally got a police shout-out. Blake laughed, noting cooler heads tune volume better than harsh orders. Director Johnson, cruising by, texted Blake a thumbs-up emoji. Proof praise can fit in pixels yet feel as big as a parade. Suddenly a squeal of tires broke the mood. A sedan tore around the corner. Stone's hand reached his holster but paused, remembering measured response. Blake hit lights and followed. The sedan stopped near a playground, and a nervous young man stepped out, eyes wide. Blake introduced himself, explained to stop, and asked the driver, Malik, if all was okay before requesting documents. Children peeking from slides. Malik stammered his mother was sick at home. Stone offered to call an ambulance while Blake checked the license. No priors, only true worry. They escorted Malik home instead of issuing a quick ticket, calling paramedics who confirmed the mother needed care. Neighbors watched a rescue, not a clash. Malik thanked them through tears. Blake said safety beats speed, and Stone gave him a clinic card with the respect oath on back, a two-sided lifeline. While medics worked, Blake directed traffic smoothly, using calming gestures that now felt natural, proving training had moved from head to hands. A teen filmed a scene and captioned it "Protect and Serve." The clip drew hundreds of likes before they even finished dinner. When the ambulance left, Stone exhaled, admitting his heart had raced yet stayed controlled. Blake patted his shoulder, crediting practice over pride. Cleared for dinner, they parked a taco truck where both ordered spicy plates. The cook teased Stone for spilling salsa on his badge. Laughter drew kids over. Blake asked math champ Jada to teach Stone a fraction trick, and soon he cut a taco into eighths, cheering when he got it right. Night settled, streetlights glowed amber, and Blake wrote digital notes, realizing reports draft faster when respect guides each step. He even caught himself smiling at the memory of Jordan stacking cereal boxes. He added a line praising Stone's growth, so supervisors would see veteran change, because written praise waters future courage. On the ride back, Stone admitted he once thought community patrols were soft, but now saw they are strong like bridges carrying heavy traffic both ways. Blake replied bridges outlast walls, and Stone nodded, the skyline ahead looking less like towers and more like shared shelter. At the station, rookies waiting for night shift asked about Maple. Stone called it his best shift in years and urged them to volunteer next. Above, stars peeked out, tiny witnesses to a day rewritten by steady hearts. Blake locked the SUV, glanced at the respect oath shining in glovebox light, and felt ready for tomorrow, knowing real safety grows from listening first and judging last. Monday dawned bright, and Officer Blake entered the precinct hall to find every chair filled. Veterans, rookies, clerks, even dispatchers, because news of the Maple Patrol had spread faster than weekend gossip. The room hummed with agreement. A paper banner reading Mirror Monday, round 2 hung above the stage, painted by local students who drew police and neighbors high-fiving instead of arguing. The hall smelled of fresh paper and hope. Officer Stone, tie slightly crooked, stood at the podium clutching index cards he no longer needed, ready to share how respect made paperwork lighter and sirens softer. Heads nodded like bobbing buoys in calm water. He thanked Jordan and Mrs. Patel for teaching patience, then lifted the cereal box Jordan had signed, now prop proving small acts could shelve big doubts. Pens scratched notes faster than raindrops on tin. Laughter rippled when Stone admitted community details once felt like fluff, but now served as fuel that kept trust engines running long after patrol lights dimmed. A ripple of pride lifted shoulder badges higher. Director Johnson clicked a remote and graphs flashed. Citizen compliments had doubled in 1 week, bars rising like skyscrapers of hope beside shrinking complaint lines. Camera phones blinked like tiny stars recording dawn. Blake explained each bar in plain words, so even the newest in turn saw kindness as measurable, not mystical, and good policing counts smiles with the same care as tickets. A soft cheer rose near the coffee urn. A rookie asked whether numbers would dip when excitement faded. Stone answered that habits, once rehearsed, stick like a song riding along on a long commute. Someone whispered, "This feels different in the best way." Johnson introduced Mrs. Patel, who wheeled in 2 trays of thank you samosas. She said hot snacks stay warm longer when shared with cool hearts. The projector fan whirred like gentle applause. Officers tasted treats while a slideshow rolled #BetterStops posts, including Malik's note that quick help beats any traffic fine. Sunbeams striped the floor like golden traffic lines. Dispatchers cheered seeing their radio work praised online, proving voices behind microphones steer outcomes as surely as hands on steering wheels. The banner fluttered under ceiling vents, almost waving back. Johnson announced a citywide respect relay. Each precinct would host mirrored role plays and end with a student-chosen community project. Laughter traveled the rows like a friendly stadium wave. A buzz filled the hall, half nerves, half thrill, like moments before a big school game where clear rules and teamwork decide the win. Even skeptical faces softened around the eyes. Blake handed out laminated oath cards edged in bright blue, so they would survive washing machines. Joking respect should be color-fast like good denim. The smell of samosas mingled with printer ink. Teams split into booths for tricky stops. Language gaps, lost tourists, loud parties, each staffed by volunteers from those groups for realism. Sticky notes bloomed across clipboards like bright petals. In the party booth, Stone faced a pretend DJ cranking bass. He used the Maple script, praising the playlist before asking for a volume dip, earning mock applause. Recruits noticed respect saved time, finishing scenarios quicker than old-barked commands that triggered argument reruns longer than late-night ads. Meanwhile, Blake coached a veteran to soften tone by picturing every driver as someone's favorite teacher. The officer's shoulders eased. A deaf volunteer driver signed nervously until a rookie responded with practiced gestures, and cheers erupted louder than any siren. Stone snapped a photo, tweeting that learning new words feels lighter than carrying extra cuffs, a line that gathered likes fast. Lunch smelled of samosas and school pizza slices delivered by grateful teens. Officers, students, and neighbors mingled like puzzle pieces finding their edges. At one table, Blake watched Jada, the math scholar, teaching percentages to rookies with sauce packets. Numbers stick when dipped in spice. Johnson noted that real-world math and empathy share one lesson. Balanced parts build whole pictures. Afternoon drills moved outdoors to cardboard cars painted by art students to look like common neighborhood rides, dent stickers included. Under a clear sky, Stone demonstrated open palm cues. Birds on a wire above copied the nods like feathered coaches. Blake timed each scenario, finding respectful stops cut average minutes by 1/3, freeing units to reach real dangers faster without rushing anyone. The skeptic captain asked about safety. Johnson played body cam clips showing calm drivers keeping hands visible, dropping sudden move risks to near zero. The captain scratched a note, calm equals clear, realizing clear minds and clear views travel together. As the sun dipped, teams gathered. Blake had each person pledge one change for tonight, turning the lot into an idea orchard glowing gold. A rookie promised to learn sign language. A sergeant vowed to start every stop with name and reason. A dispatcher pledged steadier radio tones. Stone said he would keep 2 coffees ready, one for himself, one for the next outer, because warmth can start before any cruiser rolls. Applause followed, gentle yet steady like rain that soaks in if you stand still. Johnson challenged everyone to record 1 respectful win per shift and post it so good news headlines before trouble can steal the front page. Phones buzzed as reminders set, digital strings around collective fingers. Cleanup ran fast, oaths stacked neatly, cardboard cars folded for reuse, samosa trays emptied save crumbs for hopeful pigeons. Mrs. Patel thanked Blake, saying her store felt lighter since Jordan's shelf work. Respect keeps paying interest after the first deposit. Leaving, Blake spotted the skeptic captain practicing the open palm gesture in a window reflection, a secret rehearsal that widened Blake's smile. Night settled, and Blake drove home past Maple District where porch lights blinked like friendly fireflies greeting patrols that now cruised slower by choice. At a stop sign, he remembered the first tense Maple Street moment and felt grateful that sharp lessons can carve doors where walls once stood. He parked, slid the laminated oath beside his family photo, and whispered good night to both promises, the one sworn on day 1 and the stronger one sworn today. 1 month later, Officer Blake stood at the edge of Maple Elementary's crowded gym, listening as the school band warmed up with squeaky trumpets, realizing this ribbon-cutting assembly felt bigger than any parade he had ever patrolled. The mayor, gripping oversized scissors, called it Community Safety Day. Yet every colorful poster behind the stage carried the simpler student slogan Respect First, showing how a child's 4 words could steer a whole city. Blake's eyes found Officer Stone, now wearing a bright badge-shaped sticker that read Minner, chatting with a circle of rookies who laughed instead of lurking at the wall the way new cops once did at public events. Over the past 4 weeks, the Respect Relay had ricocheted across precincts like a helpful echo, and citizen compliments kept stacking higher on Johnson's bar charts until the rising blocks almost touched the slide projector's ceiling. Stone had filmed each weekly win, quiet de-escalations, clear explanations, shared coffee moments, and stitched them into a 3-minute montage that now looped on a giant screen like highlights from a Kindness sports reel. The crowd hushed as Principal Diaz stepped to the microphone, explaining the gym would soon double as an evening language practice space where officers could learn basic signing, Urdu greetings, or Spanish traffic phrases from volunteer parents. She invited Blake forward, presenting him with a laminated thank you card signed by every homeroom. Glitter glue spelled out "Change starts with listening," sparkles catching gym lights like tiny fireworks. Blake blushed, remembering the day his patrol lights painted Maple Street in tension instead of help, and he silently promised the card would hang above his desk as a guardrail for future shifts. When the mayor signaled, Stone pressed play on the montage. First clip showed Rookie Luna greeting a deaf driver with practice signs. Second clip showed Sergeant Reed apologizing for delay before writing a ticket. Third showed Blake and Jordan high-fiving beside restocked cereal. Students cheered at every scene, and Johnson whispered to Blake that applause was proof training videos did not need chase music to keep attention when real respect starred in every frame. Next, Malik's mass-scholar sister Jada took the mic, explaining how officers had helped repaint the Unity Hands mural. Her slide displayed before and after photos where drab cement turned into bright palms overlapping like puzzle pieces. She told the audience color choices came from survey slips distributed by rookie officers, demonstrating that even paint feels safer when everyone helps pick the brushstrokes. The mayor invited Jada to cut the ribbon with him, and she joked that math majors rarely handle scissors this large, earning laughter that mingled with camera flashes blinking like friendly lightning. Ribbons snipped, the band launched a jazzy version of Lean on Me, and dozens of kids danced near the bleachers while officers guarded doors with relaxed shoulders instead of rigid stances. Stone nudged Blake, pointing out the delivery driver from the fender bender giving free cupcake samples. The driver wore a cap reading "Learning Every Mile," a slogan he said came from the Respect Oath's first line. Cupcake frosting was blue like the Oath card borders, and every wrapper carried a mini QR code linking to the hashtag BetterStops feed, turning dessert into digital outreach one bite at a time. Across the gym, Mrs. Patel arranged samosa trays again, teasing Stone about expected donut delivery. Stone bowed theatrically and promised pastry reinforcements were inbound with rookie escorts. A local journalist cornered Johnson asking for crime rate stats, and he replied numbers were still early but use of force reports had dipped 15%, while voluntary witness statements had jumped to record highs. The journalist raised an eyebrow. Johnson simply handed over raw spreadsheet links, saying transparency talks louder than podium speeches, ending questions before they stiffened. On stage now, Blake ran a brief role play with 2 second graders acting as officers and 1 teacher pretending to speed. The small officers introduced themselves, explained to stop, and offered a sticker instead of a ticket. Laughter thundered, but Johnson leaned to the journalist, saying that clarity this simple at age 8 would mean fewer misunderstandings at age 18, planting prevention years ahead of paperwork. A projector displayed a live poll asking attendees what next training topic they wanted. Empathy for elders won by wide margin, followed by strategies for calming anxious pets during apartment calls. Blake smiled at the pet option, recalling times barking dogs turned scenes sideways because no officer thought to carry a treat pouch. He made a mental note to add biscuits to his duty belt pouch. The gym doors swung open, revealing 3 precinct captains wheeling in tall cardboard towers stacked with laminated wins. Each report clipped under bold headings like Clear Explanation, Calm Voice, or Community Help. Students formed a relay line, passing the boards forward until they stood near the stage like proud skyscrapers, showing how big tiny actions can grow when recorded, shared, and copied. Stone whispered that older officers, once skeptical, now competed to post daily wins before rookies woke up, turning the internal board into a sunrise race for kindness. Principal Diaz announced the next part of the program, a live call from a neighboring county eager to replicate the relay. Cheers erupted when the screen lit up with another school gym already set for mirrors and roleplays. Blake waved at the distant crowd, feeling how technology shrank city lines, letting respect travel at internet speed, leaving no room for outdated attitudes to hide behind jurisdiction signs. Stone checked his watch, realizing his volunteer shift at Maple Market's new reading corner started in 10 minutes. Blake teased him about storytime nerves, then handed over a fresh coffee as armor. Before parting, Stone asked Blake if he ever imagined the worst stop of his career would spark the best season of his service. Blake answered that mistakes, like seeds, grow what you feed them, fear or roots. The gym lights dimmed for a final video message from Jordan, now class president, who thanked officers for teaching shelf-facing skills and for proving respect is not earned once but practiced daily like multiplication tables. Jordan ended with a joke, "Remember, volcanoes only erupt if pressure stays trapped," and the audience roared, teachers nodding at the science tieback that saved prep time for tomorrow's lesson plans. After the closing anthem, families spilled onto the playground where patrol SUVs parked with doors open so kids could sit in the driver's seat. Every dashboard held an extra oath card ready for tiny hands. Blake watched one girl buckle a teddy bear into the passenger seat, explaining to her mom that officers keep everyone safe, even plush friends. Blake swallowed a lump the size of his radio mic. Over by the mural, the skeptic captain helped elders down paint-speckled steps, his open palm gesture now so natural he used it to steady a cane, proof habits practiced in parking lots migrate into real life without squeaking. A soft buzz in Blake's pocket signaled a new #BetterStops post. The latest entry showed two officers walking an elderly man across a busy crosswalk at dusk, captioned "Respect shines brighter than headlights." Johnson approached with stone-cold samosas, joking they tasted fine.